the first slide, very first slide. Thank you. Okay, we can see this, Moeen. We see what you're doing on Facebook.
Oh, sure. Let me
Great. Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're so happy you're here. We're just getting going. I'm Khotan Shahbazi Harman. I am part of the board of the Greater Austin Asian Chamber of Commerce, and as well as the chair of the policy committee. And very excited, very happy that you all are here with us today. We are recording this. I just want to make sure that it is on Facebook Live. We have friends who are going to be joining us on Facebook Live, as well as here on the webinar. Moeen, if you give me the thumbs up that we're there it is, we're streaming now. Is that right? Excellent. Well, wonderful. So thank you so much for being here. This is the 2021 virtual day at the Capitol, sponsored by sister chambers of the Texas Federation of Asian American Chambers of Commerce in Austin, Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. We are very grateful that you all are here today and that we are able to spend some time together. We know how very busy the lawmakers are, and we are really honored that you could take time away from that and be with us today. So I wanted to go over, so if we go to the next slide, the policy agenda for what we're going to be focusing on. And there have been questions around these particular issues, which is the impact of the Biden plan for infrastructure development, COVID-19 impact, vaccines, opening Texas up for business, public safety issues, defunding the police was one that came up, racial equity, anti-Asian sentiments, and I think if we could go back, and violence, and homelessness, how it affects businesses, public health, public safety, economic development, labor issues, the shortages of talent in the workforce, and then state and local issues like the energy crisis. So as you can see, we're going to be here all day. Actually, we only have 90 minutes together, so we want to make sure that we use that time very efficiently. We will hear from our policymakers on some of these policy agendas, and in interest of time, we will invite everyone to please limit their comments to about 10 minutes. So to give us an overview, we will have a Q&A with our policymakers after everyone makes their presentations, and then we will have a wrap up. So to that end, I'm going to ask us to stop sharing the slides, and I'm going to invite, let's see, I'm trying to see if we could please stop sharing the slides. I can see who's here. Thank you very much. Why don't we go? We're might be a little bit out of order. If we could please have Mr. Bin Yu, the chair of the board of the Asian Chamber of Commerce from Houston, is here with us. Thank you so much, Chairman Yu, for being here. I'm going to ask you to please introduce Representative Jean Yu.
Thank you so much. Really an honor for this opportunity to introduce Representative Jin Wu. State Representative Jin Wu proudly served the people of District 137 in the Texas House. By the way, that's a district where our Asian Chamber Houston is, and we're so honored and fortunate to have Jean's support in our district, not just Asian Chamber, also many other Asian communities. Prior to being elected in 2012, he served as a prosecutor in the Harris County District Attorney's Office, where he sought justice for thousands of crime victims. Jean is currently an attorney in private practice. He was re-elected and is serving his fourth term in office in the 86th legislative session, where he was appointed to the House committees on appropriations and pensions, investments, and financial services. During his first term in office, Jean authorized many important pieces of legislation, including strengthening pipeline safety, modernizing investigations in child abuse and neglect cases, cracking down on organized criminal activities, and improving college readiness. Jean was appointed to serve on the House Elections and Energy Resources Committees. Following a successful first legislative session, Jean was honored to receive Sierra Club's New Leadership in Environmental Protective Award, Equality Texas Champion of Equality Award, and Freshman of the Year by the Texas District and County Attorneys Association. In the 84th session, Jean was appointed to again serve on the House Energy Resources Committee, as well as the House Committee on County Affairs. He passed legislation that modernized the criminal justice system, decriminalized truancy, enhanced pre-case standards, offered increased protections for victims of human trafficking. During the 85th session, Jean was appointed to serve on the House Committee on Appropriations and Human Services. He passed comprehensive legislation to reform the state child welfare system and juvenile justice system and work to restore critical funding for women and children's healthcare initiatives, issues, and continue to focus on during the 86 sessions. Outside his legislative work, Jean remains active and involved in the Houston community. For the past 9 years, he has worked with neighborhood centers in conducting monthly workshops that have helped several thousand Harris County residents become United citizens. Jean currently serves on community advocacy organization board such as OCA, Greater Houston Advisory Board, the Chinese Community Center Advisory Board, and the Baker Rapley Neighborhood Centers Advisory Committee. He is the past president of Houston 80/20 Political Action Committee. Jean has also served as a mentor and teacher for adults in the Skills for Living programs and tutored at risk youth at Shopton High School. Jean grew up in the Southwest Houston neighborhood of Shopton. He earned his Bachelor of Science degree from Texas A&M University, a master's degree from LBJ School for Public Affairs at University of Texas in Austin, and a law degree from Southern Texas College of Law in Houston. Jean and his wife, Maya, reside in Southwest Houston. They are the proud parents of their two sons, Winston and Lyndon. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Jean,
what
for your
a beautiful introduction. Representative Wu, you have 10 minutes, sir. Go ahead.
All right. Did you want me to go over all the slide points or just a brief introduction?
A brief introduction.
Okay.
We'll have a chance.
Well, I think since Ben basically did my introduction, I need to make a mental note to shorten my bio. I'm not sure when that was. It's a slightly out of date and way too long. Ben, thank you so much. It's good to see you again. I'm very happy to be here with the I guess group of Asian chambers throughout the state. This is actually my fifth session. As you can guess, we haven't updated our bio since last session, so I need to fix that. I'm sorry about that, Ben. Right now I sit on the House again. I'm back on a House Appropriations Committee because it's probably the most important job that we do in the legislature is to figure out the state's budget, and it's a pretty immense budget. My other job is to sit on the House Juvenile Justice and Family Issues or JJFI committee that deals a lot with like CPS and juvenile delinquency issues. I'm not sure what else to add. My day job is an attorney. I represent kids in CPS. I represent kids in juvenile delinquency. Kids have gotten in trouble one way or the other. A lot of our legislation focus if it's not dealing with a budget, is focused around dealing with kids, kids in CPS, kids in juvenile justice, just trying to make kids' lives a little better. That's about it. It's a pretty short. This is just what my passion is. I've been doing this for a long time, and you know, I'm a vocal advocate for the Asian American community. Our progress towards a more equitable future is something that's very important to me. I've spent a lot of time mentoring young Asian Americans, young Asian professionals, to join public service, to run for office, to be active, to be public leaders. This is something that's very important to me, and I'm happy to talk more about that later on. But let me give back some time, since basically Ben gave the best introduction I could have.
Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we'll shift over to my colleague Rashid Islam, who serves with me on the Austin Asian Chamber Board, to introduce our dear Texas Senator Sarah Eckhardt. Hi, Sarah. We're so happy to see you. Go ahead, Rashid.
Good afternoon, everyone, and especially thank you to all of our elected officials for making time to join us. As a resident of District 14 in Travis County Precinct 2, it's my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce Sarah Eckhardt. Sarah has been a lifelong public servant and has been serving to improve the quality of life for citizens of Central Texas, District 14. And I mean, she brings in tremendous passion, and we've been fortunate enough to see that throughout, you know, her service to Travis County. Sarah got her master's from LBJ School of Public Affairs, and then got her law degree from UT Austin. And after that, and after that, you know, she served as an assistant Travis County attorney. And in 2006, she was elected to Travis County Commissioner's Court for Precinct 2 and served till 2013. And in 2013, she became the judge for Travis County. And in last year, in July, through the special election, she is serving as our honorable senator from District 14. Sarah has tremendous passion for our community, and she has done so much work to improvise, you know, and taking care of the community. But three things that I have experienced in my life about Sarah dedicating is last year, you know, when the pandemic hit, I think she was steadfast, and her strong leadership, you know, helped us minimize the impact of COVID in Central Texas, which was tremendous. And we appreciate you for that. And, you know, preserving public space for, you know, 30,000 acres of green space for the community to make our environmental better. That was a tremendous, and something that I also experienced is dear and near to me is about transportation. Multimodal transportation has been key for Sarah's advocacy for the community, and she continues to do that, and we appreciate you for that. Last thing, you know, I would say about Sarah is that, you know, she comes from a family that is dedicated to public service. And all of you probably know this already, but Sarah's father, Congressman Bob Eckhardt, served the 8th District of in Congress and helped, you know, the vulnerable people in our community in the state capitol. So Sarah, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you and everything that you do. The floor is yours.
Unmute. Is that going to be like a word of these last 2 years? It's going to be unmute. Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Rashid. It's great to be here with you all. The Asian chambers all across the state of Texas are going to be extremely important, and are so much more important now. I went from local government to state government because I saw a real need for us to build a much more robust partnership between local governance and local commerce and our state government. We have such big challenges on our plate that are affecting every single one of us in such profound ways. Three big ones are healthcare. We're a state with the lowest number of insured people in the United States, and that is having a massive impact on us every day, and most especially during COVID-19. That only highlighted the problem. So the healthcare is a big push that we're really going to need our chambers of commerce, our gatherings of leaders in our communities to really push for and don't let the legislature's attention wander from the fact that we absolutely must expand Medicaid so that more people have access to health care. Second is our criminal justice reform. We're seeing a persistent concern that we are growing more lawless. And we really, really need to take a look at criminal justice reform and take a look at it through the lens of repairing and healing and de-escalation rather than an ever escalating sense of lawlessness. We are unfortunately seeing a lot of laxening of gun laws through the Texas legislature this session, which I believe is counterproductive to the stated goal. We are being encouraged as Texans to arm ourselves, which will make Texas more dangerous, not less so. I very much want to work with you all, particularly after we've seen the shootings in Georgia, the attack on the Sikh community in Indianapolis. We're seeing shootings all across the nation, an uptick in gun suicide. So I really look to you all to help us with that. And third, a complete reinvention of how we can think of ourselves as an energy state, and a complete reinvention of how we move through our state. These are new and wonderful times where we get to reinvent what it means to be in the energy state of Texas. Snowvid was a horrible catastrophe, and my heart goes out to all the people across Texas who suffered. A very good friend of mine and a work colleague in the transportation space actually died during Snowvid from hypothermia. I don't mean to lay aside that suffering, but to say that this has illustrated that this is a moment where we really do need to reinvent our energy sector, the sources of our energy, our partnership with the national grid, as well as how we energize our homes, how we energize our cars, how we energize our businesses. And so I'm really looking to you all to instruct me how we make that reinvention and that innovation happen. So healthcare, criminal justice, reinventing how we power ourselves. I'm looking forward to hearing from you all how we do that and how I can help and how we can work as partners at the local, state, and federal level.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much. I am going to now call on my colleague, Anthony Wynn, to do an introduction for Representative Celia Israel. Go ahead, Anthony.
Hello, everybody. I have the pleasure to introduce my representative for District 50. I first met her in 2013 at a candidate forum in Pflugerville. I was volunteering with a neighborhood association, and she was one of several candidates in a special election. She won that special election and never looked back, and now serving in her 5th term. She serves on the House Committee on Insurance and House Committee on Culture, Recreation, and Tourism. She was raised in El Paso, moved to Austin in '82, attended University of Texas, and graduated with a degree with government. She served in Ann Richards' administration and is now a Texas realtor. 4 years ago, I really got to know her by commenting on her Facebook page. To my surprise, she asked if I would like to meet over coffee. I said, sure. And we spent a few hours talking at Panera about the Uber rideshare bill, annexation, and property taxes. She gave me her cell phone number and said to call anytime I saw something coming up that I was concerned about. Since then, I've invited her to several local meetings. She's always accepted my invitation, and I'm grateful. So when we say to get to know your representatives, just do it and make an effort. You can call them, tweet them, or Facebook them, and who knows, they might be watching and might just reply. my House Representative, Celia Israel. Welcome.
Hey, Anthony. Thank you, everybody. It's good to see you. Nice to know we have a virtual statewide presence here. Anthony, I remember you invited me to the Pflugerville Republicans, and I said yes. And I think I scared them that I actually was going to go and visit with them. And we had a good discussion. And there was a bill that they loved of mine having to do with elections reform. And I'm still trying to pass that dang thing. It's about reordering the ballot so that if you're unopposed, you don't take up space at the top of the ballot. It just moves down. Chairman Kane finally passed that bill out of his committee this week, which I suppose I'll pivot. I never prepare my remarks for these things, which is always dangerous. But I'm an Ann Richards Democrat, and I'm a pragmatic Democrat who wants to simply work on things like transportation reforms. That's my passion. Multimodal answers to our transportation problems. My book of work tends to come around transportation safety and throughput. You can't just have one person in a car if you're going to be thinking about the future of transportation. And getting Texas to think about the future is hard. Then County Judge Eckhardt, and before that Commissioner Eckhardt, and I have operated in that same space, trying to push down those walls and say that we can think about the future and still take care of the present. And it's been the challenge of my life. So this session is, of course, unlike any other. Selfies with face masks. Who would have thought that we'd be doing what we're doing? Security briefings as we enter the building. These are very, very different times. So I've been trying to put it in focus that we're in a pandemic. We're one of 12 states that has not expanded Medicaid. And this is not giving healthcare to this is not welfare. This is helping working families who are the roofers and the contractors and the Uber drivers who are just making it, who don't have insurance. And I have a bill that would allow us to expand Medicaid by referendum. Other very conservative states like Missouri and Utah have expanded Medicaid by referendum because the legislature said, well, let's take it to the voters. The Hobby School for Public Affairs did a more recent poll, and polling consistently shows that 69% of Texans say, yeah, I want more of my Texans to have healthcare, because that means when they go to the emergency room, my tax dollars aren't paying for their broken leg or other trauma that happens in their lives. So in terms of the pandemic and what can we do aside from encouraging safe practices as we all build the herd, is think about those Texans who were unmoored from their job, then therefore they were unmoored from insurance, and many of them are rethinking what's my skill set going to be, because it probably won't be in the hotel industry anymore or the tourism industry. Everything that we do is changing and will be changing for years to come. And the other emergency that was thrust upon us that we didn't expect, we should have expected because we should have dealt with this in 2011, was the energy crisis. And I'm on record as saying it's an embarrassment that the energy state, especially Houston, which is the center of the energy state, we were not prepared for the unexpected, and that would be the polar vortex. And I would like to have seen us do a major redo of how we think about energy in Texas. The Railroad Commission is the gas agency. The Public Utility Commission is the regulator of the prices, and Eckhardt is the manager of the grid. And many of us, including some Republicans like Lyle Larson, for example, have been very vocal in saying, let's go big. And we're not going to go big, unfortunately, and that's a disappointment to me. But along those lines, we are more than halfway through, and we have big issues yet to tackle, and it's a concern to me that during a time when we are dealing with these big issues, we are being distracted by social issues that only do harm to the body. There's been attacks on trans students already, trans kids. We have bills that have to do with foster care, for example, that are just straight up bills on foster care or prescription drugs, and they get turned into a referendum on trans kids. And it's especially harmful to the image of the state. The business community has told us time and time again, stay focused on business and stay out of people's personal lives. And we can't help ourselves. And it's becoming a distraction earlier than it has in the past. The bathroom bill session was the worst session that any of us have been through. And I remember talking to Sempronia Thompson, who's one of our leaders for decades now in the House. And I said, Ms. T, was this the worst one? And she said, Celia, this was the worst one. Well, now we've got very, very bad social issue divisive bills that are moving, and they're coming through sooner. And that scares me as a pragmatic Democrat who just wants to work on throughput of our bills that have bipartisan support. Those are going to get stuck and clogged up in the plumbing works of the legislature. Mm-hmm. So that's my larger concern. I'll leave it there and look forward to the discussion.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your passion and for explaining so thoroughly your positions. Thank you, Representative Israel. Now I'm going to turn to my colleague from he's the Director of Community Development of the Asian Chamber of Commerce in Houston. So Paul Gore is going to introduce Representative Jacey Jetton. Go ahead, Paul.
Hi, thank you. It's a privilege to be able to be invited and to be part of this representing Houston as well. I had the privilege to introduce Representative Jensen. Jacey Jensen, who is the House Representative for District 26, which is part of the Fort Bend County, which includes Sugar Land, Richmond, and the surrounding areas. According to his profile that is published March 20th, he has about 177 constituents in population, but 30% of them are Asian, which represents one of the highest in the states. He sits on the following committees: the Elections, Public Health, and Redistricting. He's also one of the members of the Asian American House Caucus, which co-authored HCR 66 alongside with Representative Wu, and Button, and which condemns racism against Asian American and Pacific Islanders. So they'll be having their public hearing this coming Tuesday. Representative Jensen served in the Texas Army National Guards, where he is attached to the 36th Infantry Division. He has a colorful background, working as a legislative director on the 83rd legislation sessions. He's also worked with Glenn Haggard, Texas Comptroller Agency, as a taxpayer liaison, president of the Fort Bend County Municipal Utilities District 143, engagement director for the Republican Party of Texas, and also elected chairman of the Fort Bend County Republican Party. Professionally, he is a small business owner as well, operating a homeowners association management company. He continues serving the Fort Bend County by volunteering with various organizations that really focus on single mothers, poverty, and veterans issues. He's married to a wonderful lady, Fanny Jensen, who he had met in 2004 while he was in Hawaii. And they had two lovely young boys, Jacob and Caleb, who attend Fort Bend School at the Fort Bend School District. On a personal, I met him when moving back from Asia to Houston at one of the Fort Bend events where it was a crawfish festival. And definitely both him and Fanny were just welcoming to our family, and even more so getting me involved in the area. Very approachable person. He's been always proactive in the community. He always welcomes his constituents to come visit and even post pictures of them just to be able to get them involved. He's constantly pushing out legislation. He's authored many bills. So today we're really privileged to have Jacey present today. So Jacey.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I appreciate the introduction. And it's funny, growing up, I was really strict about the pronunciation of my last name. Went to basic training and tried to correct a drill sergeant. That was the last time for a long time of correcting the last name. It's actually Jetton. So Jacey Jetton is how you say it. But I appreciate it. It's good to be with everyone. I can't wait until we get back in person again. I feel like we're getting closer and closer to it. The vaccines, I feel like we're on a good track on that. And it's unfortunate what's happened with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, but hopefully we can get back on track and get things going again and get the economy open, but also to get the visitors back in the Capitol. I've only been in this session in this job for, I guess it's been about 85 days now. And so I'm still getting used to it, but I was around in 2013 for the 83rd legislative session and remembered all the visitors and all the people in the Capitol. And I do think it's important to have the involvement of everyone in this legislative process and to hear from everyone. It's also good to be with the colleagues from the legislature. I feel like the lone Republican here, but I think it is fortunate to note that a lot of stuff that goes through the legislature is bipartisan, and it is stuff that is not newsworthy because we kind of all agree on it. These are good things for Texans, and there are good things that are still happening, and I'm still hopeful for what happens for the rest of this session. I am on elections committee. I think that we're pushing through some good legislation. Representative Israel did have a good bill, and I was happy to vote for it and look forward to hearing it on the floor and hopefully pushing that over to the Senate. I think that we're going to put together some good legislation to help restore confidence in our elections. I'm also on public health, and the big reason I'm on public health is I think we have 4 major hospital networks in the district. I have a lot of doctors and nurses in the district. And so public health is important to my district, and therefore it's important to me. And so I think that there's a lot of good legislation that we're looking at to help improve healthcare in Texas, to make it more affordable, to make sure we're maintaining quality. The speaker has put together a list of bills that helps us move in that direction that I think will get heard on the floor and passed out of the House. And so I feel like we're making good progress and doing good things on that front, and hopefully we'll continue through the session. And finally, I am on redistricting as well. And it's going to be an interesting session for redistricting as the data is coming out later than we like due to the pandemic. We'll have a long hearing on Tuesday. I can't remember if the notice has been put out yet, but we'll have a hearing for redistricting that'll go over bills dealing with the possible creation of a commission to look at redistricting. And we will hear from a lot of people from around the state. And I suspect that'll be a very long meeting, but we're gonna listen. We're gonna hear the different ideas on that. And at some point, we'll get to the point of making maps and looking at how redistricting of the state of Texas, with all the growth and expansion we've had here, what things look like in the future. And so,
thank you.
Yeah, and so I just want to mention also, when it comes to energy, we did have a disaster with the grid during the winter storms, and it was very unfortunate and sad. We lost lives here in Fort Bend County and in House District 26, and it's something that definitely needs a solution. I think that we've pushed some decent bills through the House, but I think everybody's right. There's more that we can do on this. And I think that we're going to continue to look at this and see how we can improve upon it. It's difficult to winterize and still have very efficient electricity for the summer months. And it's costly. And I think there's different solutions we're going to have to look at it, how we maintain good energy production during the summer and the winter extremes. And so, but it's good to see everyone, and hope to eventually see everybody in person.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Jetton. So appreciate that. And thank you for telling us how to say it. As someone who has a very strange name myself, it's Khotan. So I have to always say like coat on, somehow people know how to say it. So thank you for that. And thank you for being here. We so appreciate it. You are our lone Republican, but you are not alone. So this is wonderful that you're here among friends, and also you're here for an open discussion. We're so grateful to you. Let's jump right into the questions. If anyone who's viewing this on Facebook Live or here on Zoom, please, if you'd like to ask any questions, you can post it in chat or post it on Facebook, and we are monitoring them. We will grab those questions. We have some questions coming in. I think Moeen is going to show you this is the how-to of asking questions. Thank you very much. If we now stop sharing so we can all see each other and have a discussion. The first question is that as the governor of Texas has opened up Texas back up after post-COVID or COVID-ish, do you think there should be a mandate for vaccination and masks? And how would that affect businesses and the economy? Representative Jetton, let's start with you on that one and we'll just go around.
Sure. I think that we need to continue to monitor things, but as things have opened back up, we've seen a lot of different areas of the state, including Fort Bend County, where the numbers have either stayed steady or lowered. And we are, a big focus of the initial vaccines went to the 1A and 1B category, and the 1B category being those over 65 and those over 16 with other conditions that make them more vulnerable to either needing to be hospitalized or possible death. And so once we got that number high enough, and now that we're getting people vaccinated, and then you also have those with antibodies, I think we're going to find herd immunity sooner than later. And with that being the case, I'm not in favor of any mandates when it comes to vaccines. And as far as masks go, I'm all for private property rights. And if your business wants to have them, I'm all in favor with businesses being able to enforce them within their businesses. But I'm not going to be in favor of a statewide mandate on that unless things spiked again.
Okay, thank you. Representative Wu.
Thank you so much. I think, I really have no problems with the state opening. I think a lot of what we've learned in the past year is the transmission issues really have to deal with can be solved by masking up, maintaining some distance, not having tight-knit, packed indoor events, because that's where the real transmission is. We've known this. The entire world, scientists from around the world has acknowledged this. So it was sort of exasperating when the governor announced that we're going to open, but not maintain something as simple as having a mask requirement. It's really such a low barrier. It's such a low burden. I mean, like, how difficult is it that if you're in a tight-knit group of people just to wear a stupid mask? I think, we are going to have people who are additionally infected, that we're not slowing down the curve and the infection rate as fast as we should be, given the how fast we're getting out the vaccines, just because of the failure of the mask, the removal of the mask mandate. In terms of a statewide vaccination, a mandate, I'm not sure you legally can do that. I'm not sure that is within the Constitution, that is within the ability of state law to do that. We can mandate things like vaccinations for school kids and stuff like that. Even those have exemptions. And even those, your option if you don't want your kid vaccinated is don't put them in public school. And there are private schools who don't have vaccination requirements and things like that, and you're welcome to do that. But in terms of adults, I don't think you legally have the ability to force adults to get vaccinated.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Representative Israel.
I think we'll look back at this time of the pandemic and say how sad it was that we let ourselves be divided about wearing a piece of fabric over our face that the doctors and the scientists suggested. Dr. Fauci has helped us through the AIDS crisis. He was sidelined in the Trump administration, and it's very, very sad, not just because smart people were ignored, but because people died. I've lost people in my family because we made this into a political statement instead of just wear a mask for a while and we're going to get through this. And, I think of the greatest generation, the World War II generation, we all came together. 9/11, we all came together. And during the most horrible crisis that I've been through as an adult, we parted on ideological terms, and it's very, very sad. One of the things I look to smart people to help me be smarter. If you're not reading the TexasTribune.org, you should. It's a very, very well written that covers us like a blanket. And during the pandemic, I was watching Christiana Monfort. I love NPR. They're thoughtful, they're calm, they're reasoned. And so it's those kind of things that I look to, and I look to smart people. And in my mind, we should have just said, whatever Dr. Fauci says, let's all do it. And so I'm pro science, and I listen to smart people. That's my guide.
Thank you very much. Senator Eckhardt. I think you're muted.
Happens to me every time. At the very beginning of this pandemic, before it hit, or before we knew it had hit the shores of the United States, I was receiving phone calls from business leaders inside Travis County and Central Texas that had deep ties in Asia. And they were saying, Judge Eckhardt, be prepared. You are going to need to shut down, mask up, get public health together, and make sure that we batten down the hatches in order to slow down the infection rate of this disease, because many of our business leaders who are in the tech world and were seeing this play out firsthand in Europe were warning us that the way to keep unnecessary suffering and death from hitting our population was to prepare and then to behave in a unilateral fashion, a little bit of shared sacrifice for a whole lot of shared protection. And so we did that when COVID did hit the shores of the United States, and we heard about our first case in Fort Bend and in Harris County, in fact. We shut down our businesses in Travis County, knowing full well it was going to be a huge sacrifice. It was right before our largest music event of the season, as well as a multitude of other music events. We knew that we were going to lose money, but it was so important that we do it. It was so important that we adapt and we find ways to reach out to one another without physically reaching out to one another. I'm glad that we did it. It was painful. It was difficult. We definitely lost money. We also definitely lost some of our small businesses that couldn't stay afloat during that time period. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But there's also no doubt that in this moment in time, as we're looking backward, and we're not through COVID-19 yet, as we're looking backward and we are approaching 50,000 people dead from COVID-19 in the state of Texas, that number would have been higher if we had not shared sacrifice by wearing a mask. So yes, I'm definitely in favor of mandatory masking until we're through this pandemic. You can't have mandatory immunization. I'm with Representative Wu there. You can strongly encourage it. You can put out a unified message about its benefits, and you can make sure that everyone has access to it. And we have done none of those things in the state of Texas. We don't have a statewide sign up for the vaccine, and we have invested very little at the state level in public health at the local level. Firsthand, I can tell you that most of our public health apparatus is paid for by local property taxes and local sales taxes. Again, we have the lowest insurance rate in the entire United States. The state of Texas is not showing a zeal for expanding Medicaid. We're leaving $11 billion with a B, $11 billion annually unrepatriated. It's our money. We should bring it back home so that more people are insured and have access to the health care they need. So yes, I absolutely favor mandatory masking. And I do not believe that we can require immunization, but we could certainly make it a heck of a lot easier to get. And also make sure that anyone with underlying health conditions for which the vaccine is dangerous can get treated by a physician because they have health insurance. How basic is that?
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next question is about the economy and economic development post-COVID. That word keeps coming up, even though we're not quite post-COVID yet. How do we rebuild the economy after the COVID crisis to bring trust and confidence back to small businesses that have drastically been impacted due to the pandemic? Representative Wu, let's start with you.
Well, I think the simple thing is you have to build trust with the public. I mean, people are staying home. People are not going back out because they don't feel safe. Easy solution to this is help people feel safe. You help people feel safe by getting them vaccinated, making sure the distribution is adequate and is equitable, making sure the distribution is fast, making sure that we have, like as Senator Eckhardt said, making sure that we have broad public announcements to encourage people to get their vaccination, make it easy. One of the big problems in my district right now is I represent a lot of very low-income people who are cleaning your buildings, mowing your lawns, and doing all these sorts of things, but they come into contact with you, and they don't have easy access to the vaccine, and they don't have the ability to go sign up on a website because they don't necessarily have a computer at home, and they don't have internet at home, or any number of things. And we need to do a better job of doing that. The other part is something we already talked about is until we reach something close to herd immunity, we need to have a mask mandate. We need to do something as simple as just saying, look, even if you are vaccinated, there are still people out there who are not. Let's us all share this burden. Let's all share in this sacrifice. And how much of a sacrifice really is it to put on a stupid piece of cloth or paper over your face when you're outside? And if we do these things and everyone feels like that everyone's being cautious, everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing, people will feel safe and people will come back out.
Thank you.
I think some of it is just, yeah, I mean,
you're saying common sense, and I hear that. Let me be a little bit more specific, and then we'll get deeper into it. In particular, when it comes to procurement and opportunities for small businesses, there's some questions around that. There's a request for a hub advisory council, excuse me, to help with economic recovery. And then specifically your thoughts about SB 6, the pandemic liability bill, SB 14, preempting cities from regulating private employment practices, hiring, scheduling, benefits, and wages, and HB 1195, the PPP tax deductibility, making sure our members who took the PPP loan won't be taxed on their gross receipts in Texas. So just these were very specific questions. Let me go to Representative Jetton around those specifics, and then we'll go circle back. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you. So on those particular bills, I think they are important to making sure that businesses get back open again. The PPP loan was very important to ensuring that not all businesses had to shut down and lay off all their staff. And it is important to recognize that as what it was, a safety net that isn't taxable income. And so we do want to make sure that we exclude that from the franchise tax. Businesses, I know a lot of businesses are worried about opening back up because of the liability risk. And we do need to take that into consideration, no matter where we're at in this pandemic, to make sure that business owners feel comfortable opening back up. A big part of what we have to do to get the economy turning again is ensuring that we have consumer confidence, the consumer to come back out and shop, but also confidence among the staff that they're going to be able to come back in a healthy environment. And that does require vaccinations. And I'll just encourage everybody. I would say here in Fort Bend County, between the county, Memorial Hermann, Methodist, and all the other partners, we have made it easy to get a vaccine. And if you want a vaccine in Fort Bend County, you've been able to get it. And I know a lot of people from surrounding counties have been able to come out and get it. And so the more that we get everyone vaccinated and implement the legislation that's going through the state legislature right now, I think that we're going to be able to get things open back up. And it's going to take everyone to get their business back open again and continue to encourage consumption, going out and getting back to normal. And we need to do that sooner and later. And I'm seeing it more and more as we go out there and to the stores. We're seeing more and more people go out there and shop. And so I think we're headed in the right direction.
Okay, thank you. Representative Israel, economic recovery. Go ahead, please.
Well, Khotan, specifically to the hub question that we had, I've done a lot of work as a younger woman on that issue, I helped pass a major reform to the hub legislation many years ago when I was working for the Mexican American Chambers. And I know my friends Rashid and Ali who are listening know that we have a city who very much believes in diversity and contracting. We have various state partners. Each state agency is in charge of their own procurement. And they have a hub goal that they are asked to meet. They're not required to meet. And a hub advisory council, I don't think there's an appetite for that at the legislature, unfortunately. When I worked to make the last major hub reforms, George W. Bush was governor and he was about to be president. And he was very, very inclined to listen to the Latino community and the people of color and say, hey, what do you guys want? Well, we'd like to reform the hub program. He had a political will to listen to us, and it showed at the polls. That was a generation ago. Those times have passed. And now if you were to say on the House floor, hey members, I got this simple bill. We're gonna, put some more energy into the hub program and help support our small businesses who need a little lift, and say that they are Asian American and African American and Latino owned businesses, they would say, hell no, that's not passing the House floor. So there's no political appetite for it. And I don't say that easily, but I encourage everyone to forums like this with your reps and your senators to say, my business is at the corner of X and Y, and this is the kind of work that we're doing. Businesses by and large want to be left alone by the legislature. And that small businesses in particular are helped when the Dells and the Apples and the Samsungs of the world, who are in my district, have really good subcontractors. And I know that's the heart and soul of our chambers of commerce, especially our chambers of commerce of color. I'm a longtime member and an advocate and supporter for our Hispanic chamber here in Austin. So sorry to be a downer on that, but that's just the political reality.
No, and we want you in the Asian chamber. If you've been a member of the Hispanic chamber, come on over, Representative Israel. I
think I'm a member, but I'm a big supporter.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you for supporting the MECA chamber, the minority chamber. Judge Eckhardt, Senator Eckhardt, what do you think about economic recovery from where you were sitting as a judge, from where you're sitting as a senator, being a citizen of Central Texas? What are your thoughts about that?
I was very, very much looking forward to going to the State House and working on the economic recovery from COVID-19. Very excited to do that. I've got a lot of history, a lot of knowledge and experience in looking at tax structures and ways to incentivize small business, medium-sized business, large business, lots of hands-on experience with hub programs, how to make voluntary hub programs really meaningful when you can't have teeth, as it were, but you can really create a zeal for them. And I was so looking forward to using that in the Texas legislature. So Representative Jetton, I'm right there with you. I just started in July, so it's my first session. But I will tell you, I have scoured the place looking for the economic recovery plan. I have talked to state leaders. I have talked to senators. I've talked to representatives. Who's in charge? Who's in charge of the economic recovery from COVID-19? Hello? Hello? There's nobody in charge. No architecture has been put in place. So I will tell you, these are some things that are, frankly, a scattershot approach, but I think that we will need a scattershot approach. I have a bill for a employment and insurance tax holiday for forward-facing businesses with the Labor Department code that shows that they are in restaurants, hospitality, that kind of thing, the ones that were hardest hit, those front-facing businesses, theaters, bars, restaurants, hotels, so that they get a tax holiday from their unemployment insurance payments. I know that that's difficult because our unemployment insurance pool at the state needs to be replenished, but these folks are really, really struggling. And that would be a way to give them a little bit of loft, a little bit of oomph, little push to maybe ferry them to the other side of this economic pandemic and still be able to survive. I've also looked at a business personal property tax holiday for those businesses as well. But frankly, the concern is if you put a business personal property tax holiday up there, then a bunch of businesses that don't need it will jump on it and try and get it too. And this is something that drives me insane about utilizing tax policy in the state of Texas. It becomes a one size fits all when not everybody needs the tax holiday. We provide a homestead exemption to everyone who has a home, which is everybody, hopefully, even if they are ridiculously, fabulously wealthy and don't need the homestead. We will not allow, under the rules in the state of Texas, to make it means tested. So another provision that I had was to make the homestead exemption a flat dollar amount rather than a percentage. That way, everybody gets the same flat dollar benefit from that tax break and not the full percentage benefit, because then if you have $1 million home, you get a 20% tax benefit, which is a way different and much higher tax benefit than someone who has a $200,000 home. So I'm very much looking forward to working on those tax issues, both short-term and long-term. We could have put together a wonderful near-term temporary tax benefit program to ferry small businesses to the other side of this pandemic, but there was no will for it, and we're not seeing it in the state of Texas. I'll keep working on it though. I'm going to keep looking.
Wonderful. So there are a couple of questions that are coming in around economic recovery. One is around how will Texas take advantage of the coming U.S. infrastructure bill to accelerate commerce for small businesses as well. Let me see if I can go to Representative Jetton. Let's start with you.
Sure. You know, a lot of that outside of my expertise at this point in the legislature. From what I understand, usually that stuff is kind of allocated by the at the federal level. But I'll go ahead and defer that to one of the others when it comes to the direct impact on small businesses.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Who would like to take that on? Representative Wu, please go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So right now with the infrastructure bill, the biggest problem is we don't know. We don't know how much money is going to be there. We don't know what kind of projects they want to work on. For the sake of Texas, and I know Representative Jetton and Representative Israel are both on our letter asking for the federal government to pay for the construction of what we call the coastal barrier, or we prefer to call it the Eckhardt. This is something that I know may not seem like it benefits Central Texas immediately, but you have to remember that in considering the economy, when we had the big freeze in February, you have to also understand that the entire nation's industrial complex ground to a halt, that anybody using plastics ground to a halt, because the coastal area plants that produce the pellets from wet gas were shut down for about 3 weeks because they had to have a hard shutdown. They were frozen for about a week, and they had a hard shutdown, which required them to be slowly brought back up in position. So that meant a huge plastic shortage around the nation, around the world. So what we're trying to prevent is, with the construction of the Eckhardt, that is going to protect probably one of the largest refinery areas, petrochemical areas, just manufacturing areas for not only the United States, but for the entire world. That's going to be a direct benefit, because if you can maintain supply lines, that helps your business. In terms of other construction projects, we don't know yet. Usually when the feds do these kind of bills, they're looking for stuff that's shovel ready, because they don't want to put in like $200 billion for a project that is like, I have an idea. They want stuff that already has a study, has plans, has construction details, maybe even have an RFP out there looking for builders, looking for engineers. I don't know what that means on a local level, but I'm going to reiterate what Senator Eckhardt and Representative Israel said, is like, look, it's really, really important for those of us, and I've done this, to advocate for minority builders, especially Asian Americans. As hard of a time as Black and Latino and women have in contracting with the state and contracting with the federal government, man, I'm telling you, Asian American businesses have it even worse because we don't have the advocates, we don't have the political leaders who go out there and say, you know, hey, I really need you to make sure that you put at least one Asian contractor on this, like, you know, $30 billion project. I'm hoping that we're able to do that. I'm hoping that the Asian community who comes out and provides a bigger voice whenever these projects come down to say, like, look, this is a big ass project. You know, there's no reason you can't find a single Asian contractor, you know, and instead of just doing the good old boys.
Thank you. Thank you. And so let me see if I can ask Senator Eckhardt and Representative Israel specifically about a project, a Mobility 35 project and its impact on Central Texas as a part of economic recovery. Is there any connectivity there, Representative Israel?
Well, I'll let the senator go first, then I'll fill in the gaps because she's really smart on this stuff.
Okay, Senator Eckhardt, go ahead.
I'm going to say the same thing. Let Representative Israel go first because she's so up to her eyeballs in this, and I'll fill in the gaps, but I'll give it a whack. I-35 is the backbone of the state of Texas from a highway transportation perspective. The most congested portion of it, we're sitting right in the middle of it with the city of Austin. Pretty much the space between Georgetown and San Marcos is the most congested spot on I-35. So this is an artery, just as just a heart surgeon would tell you. It's an artery, and we've got to unclog it. We have the 130 corridor, which is also super helpful. We need to be maximally utilizing the 130 corridor as well. So we, before I ever got to the Texas legislature, Representative Israel, along with my predecessor, Senator Watson, did amazing work in getting appropriations to that portion of I-35 to finally fix it. And so we're babysitting that money, making sure that it stays with the project, and that we get maximum local input on that project, and that project includes a forward-thinking design that has transit on it as well, because transportation of the future is not going to be what it is today. We must reinvent how we energize our state, and that includes how we move through our environment. We're going to need transit on that corridor. So I look forward to I-35 being a highway of the future instead of just retrofitting a highway of the past.
No, Kotana, to build on that, I think we need to, it's weird for me that I'm always referencing the progressive transportation solutions in the city of Houston, because we all like to pile on Houston for not, being this Wild West when it comes to zoning and planning and regulation. Well, they got their act together and they are kicking butt, because they realize that you can't just build more lanes and then expect more throughput, because that's not the way it works. You build more lanes and you get more people who pile on, and then we're all just stuck in the same mess together. You could build more lanes and be smarter about those lanes, incorporate mass transit, incorporate technology so that you're getting more people. I will add that it's not just I-35, and I fully support us redoing it. And if it involves leveraging private money, I'm okay with that, so long as we're getting the platinum plan and no more of the same old stuff. But I will link up the Project Connect. Austin is moving forward with the vision to upgrade our mass transit system. It goes to our previous question about the federal supports. These are all projects that are in the works, and we could use some federal supports. The feds look more kindly upon you when you can show some state dollars. And the state of Texas, when it comes to transit, just kind of washes its hands and say, that's your job, good luck. We have very small examples of the state working with our transit authorities. And I mentioned Houston because in Houston, on the 610 loop, you have a dedicated elevated ramp equals a shit ton of money that you built just for buses. And it's a dedicated bus lane that goes elevated, dedicated, right into the Galleria. And it's a beautiful thing. And you have a dedicated bus system now going through it. So we can do it, we can leverage private dollars, and we can build partnerships for the future, but we should expect more from the state of Texas.
Okay, wonderful. Representative Jetton, that was a soft love lob to you for Houston and what you all are doing. It felt like an olive branch was being extended. Let's talk about growth a little bit. There is such steady growth into the state from folks from out of the state, and they keep coming. So it feels. And so there was a question around projections for the next 10 to 20 years. How will it affect the state? What are the impacts on education, economy, housing prices, transportation, long-term stability of the state? From where you're sitting, what are some of your thoughts, and what are you all seeing, and what are your hopes and plans for this?
Yeah, no, there is constant growth, and that's something I think that is a testimony to what Texas has been doing right. And I think that, if you look pre-COVID, we had a very strong economy that was diversifying, and unemployment was low, I think right around 3%, and we were having steady growth. And our biggest struggles were becoming infrastructure. Water was becoming a bigger issue here in Fort Bend County. We've sucked out all the groundwater we can, and we're having to get water moved over to us. Infrastructure is a really big deal. We've heard a lot of conversations about transportation. We got to continue to build more homes, which big advocate for special districts and the development that they've allowed, and especially unincorporated areas around Texas. And then education is going to be a crucial one, and making sure we have a strong workforce in the future. I have a 9-year-old and a 13-year-old. COVID has been wreaked havoc on their education, and I know a lot of their peers are at different levels now of how they handle the virtual learning versus in person and going back and forth. It's just been extremely disruptive. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have to spend time and effort to make sure that we get every child caught back up, so that that future workforce is prepared for all the growth and development that's happening out here to be able to compete in that workforce. And so I think it's good, the development or the growth that we're having from everybody moving here, and we just need to make sure that we're investing and preparing for that future.
Thank you. So workforce investment in the future infrastructure, that's very important. So Representative Wu, to be future ready and to be future shock proof are very different. So what are your thoughts around the same question, around the steady growth that you're seeing, and how can we be prepared?
Yeah, I'm one of those people who say growth is good, immigration is good, expanding our workforce base is good. One of the things I think, especially for Asian chambers, for the Asian American community, I want for us to be very cognizant of is that outside of the economic discussion, there is a serious issue of a rising anti-immigrant, anti-Asian sentiment. And I know this is one of your talking points. I don't want to step on your toes too much, but this is something related to growth, because Texas is growing. Texas has a tremendous immigration growth. Texas is not only that, but we're getting people from California. We're getting people from New York. Who's moving here from California, New York? A lot of them are Hispanic. A lot of them are Asian. And there are people out there and who do not like that change, and who have been very vocal in saying that this is a scourge on our state. And I want to make sure that we are very careful in denouncing these types of statements, these types of ideas. I'm an immigrant. I know Jacey is a son of an immigrant, and the area that he represents, the large bulk of the Asian Americans there who have made this state such an amazing place, provided so much tax base, built so many businesses that employed hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, or immigrants. And I really, really want to get the message across, that especially to the Asian chambers, that we need you to push back and help us push back against this. That you are the shining star to show the rest of the state that this is what immigration means. This is what having more Asian Americans means. This is the beauty and growth that we provide to the state, and this is the wealth that we provide to the state. And I think I would be remiss if I did not talk about that. In terms of what we need to do, we need to do the thing that we all have always needed to do, and that is catch up in funding for schools. Representative Jetton is exactly right. We need to focus on education. We need to focus on healthcare. We need to focus on providing a safe and just a state that has a high quality of life, because that will maintain the growth. And I would have to say, it always end with what I began with is growth is good. Immigration is good. And we need to keep Texas in a footing that keeps attracting people to come here, to settle here, to bring their families, not only from other states, but from other countries.
Thank you very much. So Senator Eckhardt, to that point around immigration and the inflow of folks, both in America, outside of America, from other states to Texas, we're very attractive to so many folks. They come here, they live here, they work here, they study here, they contribute here. So what are your, from where you're sitting, how are you seeing all of this, and how do we channel and canalize all of these energies coming into our region?
We are a great state, and we're going to keep attracting people coming here. And it's going to make us even more diverse than we already are. And we already are quite diverse. Pflugerville was mentioned, Celia's district up in Pflugerville. Pflugerville is more diverse than the city of Austin. We are a wonderful melting pot, if that's even a term we should even use anymore. It's a lot of people are moving here, and they're mostly moving to our major metropolitan areas. Our 6 major metropolitan areas are growing hand over fist. And actually, we're seeing our rural areas depopulating. So while this population is escalating, it's really escalating around our major urban cores, which are our economic engines of this state. And there's many, many good things about that. But I gotta tell you, while that is happening, we are passing laws hand over fist in the Texas legislature to suppress people's abilities to vote. And the reason for that is because of our tremendous population growth in the major urbanized areas, and particularly our population growth by people who are not considered to be real Texans. And that is extremely dangerous. So really resist with everything that you've got as a chamber these voter suppression laws. These are not about restoring confidence in our election system. There is no credible evidence of widespread voter box fraud. There's lots of evidence of social media tampering, but there is very little evidence of any widespread voter fraud in the state of Texas or in the United States. This is about suppressing the votes of people who are not currently in power. This is about suppressing the votes of the newly arrived. This is about maintaining power among powerful people who don't want to share it. So resist those voter suppression laws. It's about keeping that new population from being able to meaningfully participate in democracy in Texas. And also run for office. Run for office. We need more reasonable Republicans in office. We need to get to a place where we can have bipartisan discussions about tax policy rather than weaponizing immediately. So my 2 things I would say is, yes, of course, we're growing hand over fist. We're growing in the major metro areas. Those local governments are working with the federal government to make our healthcare, our education, our transportation, and our civil and criminal justice systems the best that they can be, even though the state is hardly investing anything in those things. Mm-hmm. And if you want it to be different, if you want a better partnership at the local, the state, and the federal level, vote, make sure that anybody who voted for those crazy suppression laws gets voted out, Republican or Democrat, and run for office yourself and make sure everyone has a place at the table.
Thank you. Thank you. So Representative Israel, you are, by some data and accounts, your district in Pflugerville is growing because folks cannot afford to live in the urban core in Austin. They're being pushed out because of housing prices and other things. We know that the numbers at Austin ISD has steadily decreased in terms of the students, and they're moving to Pflugerville, Maynard, Del Valle. Can you speak a little bit to that? And what there must be so many challenges that brings for you, and how are you all managing those challenges to infrastructure influx?
Well, I'll say as a realtor who's trying to help my clients find a home on the weekends, right now I've got to go show some houses after I leave here. It's horrible, horrible. It hurts my heart. And home prices from last year to this year, I believe, have gone up 26%. So the house that's on the market for, let's say, $235,000 is getting 20 people to bid on it, and it ends up going for $350,000. So it's bad. It's bad, and that has implications, of course, for the urban and the suburban and the rural growth. And it has implications for, as Rep. Jetton was referencing, infrastructure is important. And it means that I'll give you an example. In southern Travis County, we're putting in a new Tesla auto plant. It's, by all accounts, wonderful, great, more jobs, more good paying jobs. But it puts in the back of people's minds, when we have an energy crisis, how do we pay for all of that? The Samsung plant is in my district, and when they lost power, they had to go all the way down towards the end of the crisis, and they lost equipment. They were losing $10 million a day because the equipment that they needed, you can't just go down to the Advanced Auto Parts and pick up a coupling. These are, of course, specialty parts. $10 million a day. They lost for weeks. So the point I'm trying to make, Kotan, to your question about growth, is that Texas is a magnet, and people are coming here, and we do need that growth to continue our economic stability. But there's implications for that growth on our school systems, on our water systems, now at top of mind, on our power systems, on our grid. And we have got to be up to the moment. So we can't allow this legislative session, the regular session, to be the end of the discussion. These are big, meaty issues, and we need to utilize our off time to come together and think through how are we gonna protect ourselves in an age in which our climate is changing. We're gonna have, I'm on the insurance committee, and we've lost billions of dollars in property loss, and it's going to happen again. Insurance companies have their own climatologists, and will tell you this bad stuff is going to happen again and again, whether you're on the coast or whether you're in Amarillo, and we're going to have a horrible summer. So yes, we've got to acknowledge science, and hopefully we will not lose our voice. I can't, in case I don't have a chance to speak again, I want to speak to Rep. Wu's comments on the growth in Asian American hate crimes is real. I went to a vigil in my district to show respect and concern for my constituents. And I hope that I feel as though the Asian voice is going to go stronger out of these tragedies. And I encourage you guys to make your voice known as individuals, and be activists, be advocates through the chamber and through other organizations, because we need you guys to elevate your voice, and I really appreciate the time today.
Thank you. Thank you. We're so grateful for all of you, and we have so many more questions, and we wish we could have had more time with you. This has been so insightful, and such a lovely way to talk to each other, to be together, to give feedback and insights on these very difficult issues. I am going to do something terribly unfair. I'm going to combine two very, very challenging questions and leave it to you for the next 10 minutes as I call on us to share our insights, whichever part of it you would like to speak to. There is a question around safety. And do you support any legislation that impacts cities if they decide to reduce police budgets? What kind of security support systems are we or are you planning for racial Asian hate movement to protect our Asian community? And the last question is, what solutions are there for our growing homelessness problem? This is something that truly affects our communities, our businesses. There is a sense of public health, public safety, fairness, equity. So a very unfair question. I told you it was going to be an unfair bundle. Let me see if I can start with Representative Jetton. Please, sir, go ahead.
Sure. Yes, these are some good ones. Yeah, so as far as safety in the communities, I think it is important that we support our law enforcement and make sure that they have all the tools and resources they need to keep our communities safe. I think that's something we can all agree on. As far as the hate and different things that have come up, especially over the last year, as Representative Wu had mentioned, it's very unfortunate. It's disgusting. I think it's important for all of us, and this isn't, this goes beyond policing. This is us being involved in our community and making sure that we're calling out hate when it happens and exposing it and pushing it out. It's more important that we make those pushing the hate feel more uncomfortable than the ones receiving it. And I think that's something that we're going to have to keep on pushing on over the next for unforeseeable future. We're going to have to make our community safer and ensure that we're keeping our families and neighborhoods safe. When it comes to homelessness, this is an issue that, I lived in Hawaii for 5 years. Hawaii has a large homeless population. People would save up enough money just to get to the island because it's going to be homeless somewhere. It's good to be on the beach. But they spent a lot of money trying to figure out how to solve this. They built large facilities and different things. And homelessness is one of those issues that is complex, that everyone has their own story. They have their own reasons for being there. And we do need to look at how we're going to address those things, whether it's addictions, but mental health. I don't think there's any question after all that we've gone through over the last year that mental health is an issue. It was an issue. It is a bigger issue now. We're learning what isolation does to people. And we know that those on the streets feel isolated. They feel alone. They have anxiety. There are things that a lot of us are feeling now that we're going to have to continue to find solutions for, to make sure that we are rebuilding them so that they're able to re-enter our society and be productive citizens.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. Representative Wu, please go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. Let me just start with this is I would urge the Chamber of Commerce to be very careful in falling for some of the stuff. The state's legislation dealing with defunding the police and stuff like that, those are very, very political. They're very partisan. There's a lot of political motivation behind it. Basically, the simple fact is no city in Texas did anything of the sort. Even Austin, when they did their budget, they transferred money from one area that had police dealing with it to a different organization that dealt with the same thing to deal with people who are homeless, to deal with people who have mental health issues. They wanted a different organization to solve those problems. And we need cities to be able to make those decisions. The final irony of all this is when we passed the tax, the property tax cap last session, we asked them specifically to let us exempt out public safety so that we would not have to cut back on funding for police and for other public safety services. We were flatly denied. But we asked for the Republicans to exempt out public safety, exempt out the police, and we were specifically denied, right? So this is one of those issues. be careful getting too deep in this. This is very, very political. I mean, if that's what y'all want to do, that's what y'all want to do, and that's fine. And let me just say this on the issue of Asian hate, and I've been very outspoken about this. This is an issue, obviously, is very important to me personally. I've had community members who have been harassed, who have been attacked. We've been fortunate not to have as many incidences as there have been in, let's say, New York or San Francisco, but the number of vandalisms, of confrontations in the market parking lot, people being yelled at in the store, those have gone up. We just now have a couple of charges in Houston that have been upgraded to a hate crime in a pretty brutal assault of a Korean business owner up in North Houston. I think one of the first things that we need to do as a legislature is to acknowledge the problem. And we have, I have House Concurrent Resolution 66. Representative Jetton is a joint author on that. Representative Celia Israel is a co-author on it. This is a bipartisan effort to, one, acknowledge that there is a problem, and to urge all people, including other elected officials, to be careful and to be mindful of what we say and what we do. Words matter. Words have power. And if you look at a lot of the people who have committed these attacks in the past year or so, many of them we would easily say are mentally unhinged. We can't always stop people who are sort of off from committing bad acts, but we can stop egging them on. We can stop giving them a target. And that is what, at minimum, what we as public leaders should be doing, that we should be taking a stance, that we should say, we're going to be careful about our language. We're not going to make Asian Americans the target of these crazy people. We're not going to make them the target of hate and bigotry. Going beyond that, one thing that I've pushed for a long time is we need Asian Americans to be visible. And this is something that public officials like us can do as well. We urge Governor Abbott to appoint Asian Americans. In the last 20 years, there have only been about a half dozen Asian Americans appointed to state boards and commissions. 20 years, right? You know, one of my mentors is Bob G, who was the first Asian American Public Utilities Commissioner, and there were no subsequent Asian Public Utility Commissioners for the next 30 years. And that's something that's like, why? Are there no qualified engineers who are Asian? Are there nobody who understands utilities and the environment are Asian? You can't find one. You know, and this is something that I think is very important. This is not just about the governor. This is also about your mayors. This is also about your city councils. Who are you appointing to elected non-elected commissions and boards and whatnot? How about, can we have one Asian American at the top? Someone who shows up and stands at the podium and not behind the podium, right? So there's a lot more stuff, but I think those are two really, really easy things to just show that Asian Americans, that what I've been saying for as many years as I can remember is Asian Americans are American.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Representative Israel, same questions to you.
I was so enraptured by Mr. Wu.
It has to do with public safety, supporting legislation that impacts cities if they decide to reduce police budgets, homelessness, and then racial anti-Asian hate. These are questions that are coming in from our audience. So we would like to be able to answer them. Thank you, ma'am. Go ahead, please.
Well, Rep. Wu did a great job of saying that the cities are not defunding police, but that line item sure caught on like wildfire. We support the police. I supported the police when they took a stand in opposition to the gun bill that we just passed. And, you know, on the homelessness issue, it is, there's one of my Republican friends, For Price, he's like our go-to guy on mental health care. The estimates are that about 50% of the chronic homelessness have severe mental illness and depression issues, and that it's a disease. Like it's not their fault. They need medicine. They need healthcare. They need a regular doctor. So much of us, when we're hurting, whether inside or outside, we go to a physician and we get professional help. And if there is a drug that can stabilize us, we get that drug. So many of our brothers and sisters who are in a bad place right now don't have the family supports. So it's an intractable, difficult issue. And so we need more mental health supports. We need healthcare coverage, and we need multi-layered answers. Even those people who are have found themselves camping on the street are not in a place where you can just say, okay, look, here's a key to a hotel room. Call us in a few months, and if you're ready, we'll see what we can do about getting you in another place. Those people need lots of help, and it's an issue in which I wish that rather than attacking cities, that we were saying that the state of Texas would say, hey, we're here to help. What can we do together? There should be a summit on unaffordability that should include all of our city and county leadership, because this isn't just an urban core problem. I represent the farther edges of Austin and into Pflugerville. And as we all know, they are camping in the woods, and they are sometimes unseen. And it's a sin. It's a sin what's happening. So there are a few pieces of legislation. Rep. Goldman had one on the House floor just yesterday on the tax credit program. And there should be more supports during this time. If you look at being in a pandemic, one of the effects of the pandemic is people being dislocated from their support network. And my concern is that the chronic homeless problem is going to get worse from those people who have fallen through the cracks.
Thank you very much. Senator Eckhardt, you get the last word today. So about the same issue before we wrap up. As a judge, you probably saw this issue and saw it as it was developing in our region. Now as a senator, what are your thoughts about this? You are muted. I get to say that one last time.
Rob you of that opportunity, Kotan. This is an ever-present issue for us. And this is a very localized issue too. It's a very human, individual issue. I mean, Buddha Gautama said, if you see yourself in others, you cannot harm another. If you truly see yourself in others, you cannot harm another. That's the Buddhist version of the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I mean, this should be our basic tenet of all of our governance. But instead, we are engaged in hatred, violence, otherizing, depersonalizing, dehumanizing people, rather than reaching out to figure out what needs to be done. If that were me living on the street, if that were me as a police officer who was afraid and was unable to de-escalate circumstances because they didn't have the training, if that were me who was struggling with substance use disorder and couldn't hold down a job, what would I want? What would I need? We really need to be seeing ourselves and other people. Defunding the police, of course, is not the answer, and that's why nobody is doing it. No one is defunding the police, but we aren't funding mental health care. We're not funding healthcare generally. A single man in the state of Texas with no children, if he has not been diagnosed with a mental health disorder or some other SSI circumstance, gets zero Medicaid, is not eligible for Medicaid, period, full stop. You could have zero income in the state of Texas. And if you are an unmarried adult with no demonstrated disability, you have zero Medicaid. So we really do need to be thinking, if this were me, what would I need in order to get the health care, the housing, and the job opportunities to meaningfully contribute toward my society. And that's what we should be doing. And that's what many of us are doing. I cannot stress enough, our local folks are doing that. We make mistakes at the local level, but we're trying. Whereas at the state, we are, the solutions being offered are really more designed for political posturing than they are for solving the problem. And that breaks my heart. We've got real challenges. Let's roll up our sleeves and get it done.
I think that's a great place to end. Let's roll up our sleeves and get it done. We can't ask for anything more. The business community is always asking, what do you want me to know and what do you want me to do? So rolling up our sleeves and getting it done is very important. Our gratitude, our deep gratitude to all of you for being here. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to interact with you in this manner. Thank you for your generosity in serving in the way that you do our community. Each one of you is a leader in our community, in our state, and we really look up to you. We respect you, and we're so grateful for your time and insight and everything that you're doing for our community, the whole community in Texas. And we really, the Texas Federation of Asian American Chambers of Commerce, our sister chambers are with us here today. We know that we didn't get to all the questions that you posted in various ways. Here's how to follow up with us, and we'll make sure that our dear lawmakers get a chance to see your questions. If you would like to get in touch with anyone that we spoke with today, of course, through their offices, it's very easy to get in touch with them. As you heard, the folks that knew them, that introduced them, this is who they are. We have Senator Sarah Eckhardt with us, Representative Celia Israel, Representative Jean Wu, and Representative Jacey, Jetton. So thank you again for coming. And I think at this point, let's see if we could stop sharing the slide. We can see each other and do a warm Texas greeting with one another, and hope to see each other soon. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts to each and every one of you. And we hope to see you all soon. Thank you for all of your service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out, guys.
Thanks so much, y'all.
Thank y'all.